Here's the economic update for April 12th, 2026. Let's go through the jobs first. So on April 3rd, we got our jobs numbers back from the BLS. We see that we have 178,000 jobs created in March. That's actually really good compared to what we saw in February. We had a loss of 133,000 jobs, and this was revised down from the previous number by the additional 41,000. And in January, we added 160,000 jobs, and this was revised up by 34,000 jobs. So that's pretty good news. Now, if we look at our unemployment rate, we're now at 4.3%. The reason why I have a red arrow going mostly up is this has been climbing year over year for the last couple of years. And it came down slightly from 4.4 down to 4.3%. We still have about 7.2 million people that are unemployed. However, do realize that there is about 4.5 million people that are underemployed. Basically, they're working part-time due to economic conditions that they can't find full-time employment. And there's over 6 million people that want jobs that haven't interviewed or looked for a job in the last 4 weeks. So those people are not counted as being unemployed. So this number is much higher than what's being represented here. The other thing that you want to pay attention to is the labor force participation rate. If the labor force participation rate is going down, regardless of what the unemployment says, it means that less people as a percent are actually working. So we're seeing a drop in the labor force participation rate. At the end of March, we had our JOLTS report. We have 6.9 million open jobs. This is the lowest hiring rate since April of 2020. There's currently more than one unemployed people per open job. So even if everything was perfectly matched, there wouldn't be enough jobs for the people looking. Now, that being said, you're going to have people at different locations that are not where the jobs are, or they have a different skill set. So there's always going to be some mismatch. So it's, a tighter labor market. And next we have our inflation. March 18th, we had our producers price index, came out at 3.4% rising, and we had our producers price index core, that's minus food and energy, that's 3.5%. Remember, this is February. That means that this data came out before the US, Iran, and Israel were, in armed conflict. So do realize that the producers first see an increase in their prices, and then they pass it along to the consumers. So then you would naturally see that go up as well. So on April 10th, we had our consumer price index, and that went up to 3.3%. This is March data, so this is incorporating some of the increase in the fuel costs. That's a pretty hefty jump in my opinion. The CPI core, which takes out food and energy, this is still also going up in March. On April 9th, we got our personal consumption expenditures. Those were steady at 2.8%, and personal consumption expenditures core minus food and energy at 3.0%, slightly down. Do realize that all of this data is always about a month or two behind. So with what has gone on with the recent increase in price of fuel, that's not going to come out until another month from now. The Fed has a dual mandate. It's targeting 2% inflation. The dual mandate says stable prices. That's why you have 2% target for inflation and maximum employment. So if you start seeing the unemployment rate going up or the labor force participation rate going down, just in general, less people have jobs, the Fed generally wants to reduce interest rates to stimulate the economy to have more people get jobs. And if inflation is running hot, which it is, what they try to do to stabilize the prices are effectively raise interest rates, which then drops the demand for those goods. People don't hire as many people, and then it slows the economy. So right now we have two things at the same time that would require different approaches from the Fed. So they're in a bit of a tough spot. So the Fed had their Federal Open Market Committee meeting on March 18th, and they held at 3.5 to 3.75%. They said the economy was still expanding. They had low job gains. Unemployment had changed very little. Inflation remained elevated, so that's why they didn't raise interest rates, and that's why they also didn't drop interest rates. The next Fed FOMC, where they can decide whether they keep, raise, or drop interest rates, will be on April 29th. I think they're probably just going to pause. I don't think they're going to do anything because There's a bit of uncertainty with what's going on with the U.S. and Iran. Is that over? Is it continuing? There's a ceasefire right now for 14 days. There's currently peace talks that are occurring in Pakistan between the U.S. and Iran. Israel is still attacking Irani-backed forces in Lebanon, and Iran is still blocking basically the Strait of Hormuz. Once this all started, you can see that ship traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has basically ground to a halt, and 20% of the world's oil stopped flowing through that passageway. There was a sharp increase in gas, jet fuel, diesel, also fertilizer, and it's planting time for crops in the US. So that's going to have a major impact on farmers. And then, shipping, trains, trucks all use diesel. We're having jet fuel shortages mostly in Europe at the moment, in Asia, in the US, and some European countries. They're starting to reduce the amount of flights to reduce the amount of jet fuel that's being used. Uh, there were oil fields and refineries that were attacked by both sides. So those are going to take several years to rebuild. So even if there's peace, it doesn't mean all the oil that was available for everyone would automatically just go back online. The oil did go from about $55 a barrel before all of this happened in the past year to over $110 a barrel, and it's down now at $90 a barrel. One thing I don't think people quite understand is that if a ship leaves the Middle East and wants to come to the United States, it's going to take about 40 plus days to actually arrive in the US because they're only traveling at about 10 to 20 miles per hour. If you're talking about Europe, you're probably in the 20 days or so. And if you're in Asia, it's probably 20 or so days, 30 days. The US is actually still receiving a small amount of oil. We don't rely as much on Middle Eastern oil. Some of those ships that left before the conflict are still arriving in the US. We actually haven't yet had a lack of deliveries, which will start occurring over the next few days. Whereas Europe and Asia, on the other hand, they're already feeling the pinch of the reduced oil. Do realize that when you double the price of something that's an input, it's going to impact inflation. Like we saw for CPI, it quickly rose from the mid twos to 3.3%. And if this goes on and we have high costs like $130, $150 a barrel, there would be a very high likelihood of a recession. That's pretty much been a predecessor of many recessions in the past. And that's so much of a risk that many countries were actually starting to release strategic oil reserves in order to keep down the price. Basically, we need to open the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. has moved considerable amount of forces between aircraft carrier strike groups, and the U.S. has been keeping its options open by moving several thousands of Marines, paratroopers, other ground forces, and they already had, tens of thousands of ground forces throughout the Middle East region. So those are still potentially in play. Hopefully they're not necessary. And the U.S. has started to demine the Strait of Hormuz to allow for the shipping lanes to reopen at some point in the near future. Now, with all of this, I don't really have high hopes. The reason being is that if one side really wants, say, nuclear weapons, and the other side says you absolutely cannot have nuclear weapons, it's kind of like a non-starter. So I don't know where these are going to go. So we'll see. Time will tell. If we look at GDP, gross domestic product, for first quarter of 2025, we had negative 0.5%. Second quarter, we rebounded at plus 3.8%. Third quarter of 2025, it was the highest in 2 years at 4.4%. We did have a revision down for fourth quarter of 2025 down to positive 0.5%. A lot of that's probably due to U.S. shutdown and some other things going on at that time. First quarter of 2026 has been further revised down, mostly probably due to the Iranian conflict, as well as the Department of Homeland Security partial shutdown for a period of time. And do realize that about 60 to 70% of our economy is based on consumer spending. As long as people continue to spend money, Basically, somebody has to make those goods or provide those services, so that's what really drives our economy. So how is the consumer doing? So on April 10th, we had our Michigan survey of consumers. The index of consumer sentiment month over month was minus 10.7%. Year over year, it's down 8.8%. Our current economic conditions, down 10.2% month over month and down 16.2% year over year. Our index of consumer expectations, down 10.8% month over month, down 2.5% year over year. Do realize that we are comparing back to April 2025. If you remember, in April 8th, April 9th, we had Liberation Day, where we were going to have tariffs on pretty much every country. So that wasn't really a high point in terms of confidence. And even compared back to that time period, we're even worse off than that time. So it's not looking good. April 9th, our disposable personal income went down $18.3 billion, so that's down about 0.1%. If you look at personal consumption expenditures, they're up $103.2 billion, so that's plus 0.5%. A lot of that has to do with people buying cars, parts, or money going towards healthcare. If you look at the personal savings rate, this has gone down this month to 4%. So it's a bit on the low end. Another thing to look at for how is the consumer doing, March 4th, we looked at 401k hardship withdrawals. They're at 6%. These are typically when you lost your job or there's some type of emergency. These have been rising for the last couple of years. The other thing is the 90-plus day delinquency rates are the highest since they've been during the Great Recession in terms of credit cards, car, and school loans. On March 10th, real estate news, there's 4.09 million existing home sales. That's down 1.4% year over year. The median price home is at $398,000, and it's gone up about 0.3% year over year. So if you account for inflation, it hasn't really gone up that much. There's 1.29 million existing homes for sale, so that's up 4.9% year over year. And we're still at 3.8 months of supply. So that means it's a seller's market as an average for the whole, but do realize that real estate is local, so some are buyers and some are sellers markets. It depends. A balanced market is about 6 months typically. On April 1st, we got our manufacturing data from ISM, and manufacturing is growing for the third month, and it's growing faster than previously, so that's good. The economy is still growing, and it's growing faster. It's now for the 17th month of economic growth, so those are also good. For the leading economic indicators on March 19th, the leading economic indicators still fell. It didn't fall fast enough to trigger an actual recession warning, but it's falling, just not as fast. And we haven't had that signal since August. Consumer expectations were still dragging on this. However, the S&P 500 was good in January, but it's not now. It's been going down for the last couple of weeks due to the conflict in Iran and increase in fuel prices and all of those things. So we'll see what happens. This should be updating in the next week or two. The coincident indicator still rose, meaning that you're not currently in a recession, but the leading economic indicator is saying that there's a potential for something over the next couple of months. A couple words of caution here. So if you look at the yield curve, looking at the 10 minus the 2-year, you will see that we've gone through an inversion, and then we've basically gone above 0.5%. And when this typically happens, it is followed by a recession. Now, this time has been dragged out for a longer period of time, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this happened back in 1991, 2001, 2008, 2020, and it's happening again. I am a little cautious, and I'll get into how I'm investing next, but that's kind of just something to be aware of. So if you look at cap ratio or the Shiller PE ratios, effectively, it's very high. This happened back in 1929, which then kicked off the Great Depression. This happened in 2000, right before the dot-com bubble. It also happened in 2022. That also happened alongside interest rate hikes by the Fed, as well as the Ukraine and Russia conflict, and it's happening again today. It wouldn't surprise me if the S&P 500 went down, 20% or something. It's not uncommon for that to happen, you know, once every couple of years. Same, it did that in 2022, and it recovered a few years later. So what am I doing with all this information? First off, what you want to do is always have an emergency fund. That emergency fund should be about 6 months of your expenses. And the reason being is for those that are unemployed, over 25% of them have been unemployed and jobless for more than 6 months. So I want to have that cushion. The next thing I want to do is if I need any money, say I'm buying a car, replacing a roof, buying a house, having a wedding, something like that, anything, or retiring the next year or a couple of years, anything in the next 5 years, that money doesn't belong into the investments because they can lose value. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put those into high yield savings, high yield CDs, something that is FDIC, so it's insured, so that I have less of a risk of losing value. And I'm going to need to spend that money. But anything I don't need for 5 years or more, that's what I'm investing. So that I'm going to take 70 to 80% of that, and I'm going to put it into the S&P 500. About 10-20% goes into the total international stocks, and about 0 to 10% goes into long-term bonds. And the reason for that, and I'm going 10% bonds right now, like 15% into total international, and that sort of thing. The reason is that it's outperforming the US a little bit at the moment, and if interest rates do drop, especially on long-term bonds, like the Fed needs to bail things out and they need to buy up long-term bonds, effectively that drops the interest rate. However, that takes all the current bonds that are paying at a higher interest rate and increases the bond value. That's a little bit more complicated, but the bond market's bigger than the stock market. So that's what I'm doing with my money. I do also have a very small percentage, less than like 0.1% into the S&P 500. Basically, it's a put option, and the reason I have that is when stocks go down like they just did, I make money as the stock goes down. But do realize that about 80% of all options expire worthless. So it's more of an insurance policy. It's not really what I'm like investing in. And the reason why I have that put option is effectively it gives me downside risk protection so that I sleep better at night. I understand it's like an insurance policy. I hope it expires worthless. 80% of the time, options tend to expire worthless. I also have a long-term call option in 2027 on TLT, which is 20 plus year bonds. Again, this is like 0.1% of my portfolio. It's not a large percentage. I also hold, about $150,000 to $200,000 in terms of silver, gold, other precious metals, copper, aluminum, those types of things. So again, I don't really think of them as investments. I just hold them and just hold them for a long period of time. The last time I sold off all my silver was about $40 an ounce back in, I think it was 2011. And I bought it all up when it was about $15 an ounce. The gold I bought up at like $1,400 an ounce. So right now I'm holding, I'm not selling, but I'm also not buying. I'm letting it drop a bit more. Well, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to learn more about financial topics such as how to make more money, how to save, how to invest, how to start businesses, this is a channel. I cover all of those topics. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe and have a great day.